And in this edition, we ask the Justice Ministry how costly access to justice is in the Gambia, why accused persons do spend years in custody before they are brought before courts of law, as well as the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Hello, I'm from Ibunje Theatre. Welcome to Face the Nation. Today, our topic for discussion is access to justice. And our live audience in this hall is made up of all the stakeholders in the dispensation of justice, because justice is everyone's business. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our distinguished guest, the Honorable Minister of Justice, Abubakar Tambaidu. Mr. Tambaidu, by the way, is accompanied to this hall by his Solicitor General, Cherno Marena, and some very important personalities from the Ministry of Justice. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me once again in welcoming them. Before we start the discussion proper, we have a video which we would want to play.
My name is Ola Oduri. Actually, in the Gambia here, the justice system, to look at it from the side of someone or the side of the fee is a bit expensive. Like the access to justice is fine. You know, it's easier for an ordinary man. It should be easier. It should be, the prices should be leveled down so that an ordinary man should be able to afford to be able to, sue or ask for his own the damages, if any damage is done in terms of justice. But if the charges is a bit higher, it's going to be very difficult for you to get the money to even start charges are problems. They are a bit expensive.
The legal services in the Gambia, they are quite exorbitant and very expensive, like I said, in the measure that it wouldn't favor all. And then looking at it generally, when it comes to accessing legal services, it is quite admitted that everyone access legal services at a cheaper cost possible. So definitely, I think it is costly. Surely it favors those with a higher budget, like compared to those with a low income.
So maybe not Salah. I'm a high. My maximum maybe at the end of the day, Miami 3,000, 4,000 euros. Okay. Like you ask my parents, make my personal them school. At the end of the day, it's not a problem. The emergency for me, the charging a high $30,000 for somebody, something like that. At the end of the day, my general is my salary. You know, I'm
a Baria local for patients. Women Timinandia so Ilaftamina Tasula. High Raku right baby, Koi Batadoman, Ni Batata, Alas Nay Mapui.
The police and the judiciary are all partners in development. Nonetheless, we're facing challenges as prosecutors before this court or before the courts in the Gambia. Now, one of the challenges that we face as prosecutors is transfer of magistrates. Transfer of magistrates normally affect our cases. That is to say, cases it causes delays before a case is reassigned again. It takes time, so it affects our cases also. The other thing also is that judgments, before judgments are delivered, it takes time. So it is also another thing that we face.
Ni ko do mari bare pura kata ka lawyer fananta akana to bulu problem oleki to nyalo masa kunda ba kata kan ka state council na te ni ala ka trapuru mo municipality bar han ko san abika kanyan ha ba pulo ko baraka bari wo fanan abika kanyan.
In that clip, access to justice seems to be very expensive.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you to GRTS. It is expensive for a variety of reasons. And going forward, it is the intention of this government to address some of the root causes of that expensive legal system. But also allow me to say that lawyers around the world, law is an expensive business. It is not cheap at all. And that is why in several countries, they have designed a system such as we have in the country as well, NALA, the National Legal Aid Authority, whereby people are given a means test to determine affordability, whether or not their income can afford them the legal services that they would want.
Legal aid is only meant for criminal cases and not civil matters.
Yeah, I'm coming to that. I'm just giving you a background of why access to justice is a difficult, multifaceted problem that needs to be addressed in a holistic manner. So the starting point is law is an expensive business. Law is an expensive business. Now, when we talk about access to justice, it's not only an issue of affordability. It's an issue of accessing the fora where justice will also be delivered. For instance, presently in the Gambia, if you have a case up in the provinces, if it is not in Basse or Mansakonko, and it's a matter that should be before the High Court, then you have an issue right there, because it will cost the litigants transportation. That will increase the cost. If you want to hire a lawyer, you will have to hire a lawyer from Banjul to travel all the way up. If you have a case in Basse, the lawyer needs to buy fuel. And the case may not be disposed of in one day, not even in 1 month or 1 year. Now, all of those costs need to be factored in. And that is why going forward, it is the intention of the government to decentralize even further access to our superior courts, to establish high courts in strategic parts of the country so that ordinary Gambians can easily access these courts. But we also need to encourage our lawyers to increase their practice beyond the confines of the Greater Banjul area. But we have to be realistic. They incur costs. One way of addressing that, of course, is to make sure that when lawyers are given cases, that these are cases that I believe, or perhaps I should put it the other way, that when lawyers accept cases, they should factor in the cost element for ordinary Gambians.
But who should put that to the lawyers, the private practitioners? Who should put that to them?
Well, I'm afraid we live in a liberal and democratic society. The lawyers are free to a large extent to charge their fees based on their own assessments of the strength or weakness of the cases that they are given. However, they also have a moral responsibility, especially in cases where they feel or where an issue of injustice is at stake, I believe that moral authority or that moral obligation should also kick in. But that's something you can't impose on lawyers. I'm afraid we live in the real world. They have their families and their law practices to take care of. Legal practice involves cost, a lot of cost, not just in terms of fuel, but also in the day-to-day running of their law practices.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Let me now turn to your Solicitor General. Mr. Solicitor General and Legal Secretary Cherno Marena, you heard your minister saying that they are in the process of trying to help reduce the court charges. My question to you, because you mentioned about the decentralization of the system, what other measures do you have, or what plans do you have to make sure that the cost goes down?
Okay, thank you very much. I think the issue of legal cost is really one of pure economics. It's one of demand and supply, really, because the more lawyers you have, the less the fees are going to be, because there's going to be more competition among the lawyers. They're going to compete to attract clients. But of course, the less lawyers you have, the more their fees are going to be, because you'll have more people running after few people for legal services. Solving the problem really is to make sure that we have more lawyers in the country. And I think the Ministry of Justice, is really supporting the Gambia Law School, which was established in 2011 in order to produce more locally bred lawyers, more home-trained lawyers, to the extent that we will be able to have more lawyers in the system, and accordingly, the lawyers' fees would certainly come down. And since 2011, since the establishment of the Gambia Law School, the school has been able to produce over 100 lawyers. And this has helped greatly in, of course, offsetting the cost that, legal services comes with. So that's a starting point, really. It's a simple demand and supply, problem. And, you need to recognize it. But of course, I think the minister has touched on the fact that the National Agency for Legal Aid was established by an Act of Parliament in 2005, which actually seeks to provide legal service support to indigent Gambians, people who cannot afford the legal services or the cost of private legal services. As of now, the National Agency for Legal Aid only provides support for capital offenses. But of course, under the Act, under the National Agency for Legal Aid Act, there is provision of services even in civil matters. But of course, that is subject to the availability of the resources.
Thank you very much, Solicitor General and Legal Secretary. Let's now pass the microphone on to our audience. We want to hear your views about the expensiveness of our justice system.
The contribution that I have is, as the professor said, one of the ways that we are making to reduce the cost, access to justice, is bringing students to university, teach them to become lawyers. As he said, the higher the demand, the cost it is. Now I'm asking if you are making any means that you are putting in the University of the Gambia for all students interested to get access to the field. As I learned in the University of the Gambia, medicine and lawyer, it also study law is one of the most expensive in the University of the Gambia. So if you have the ability to go to university, so that the lawyers will be available to reduce the cost.
Thank you very much. You made a very important point, asking whether the ministry is engaging officials of the University of the Gambia in helping to reduce university fees.
Yes, thank you. Unfortunately, the University of the Gambia is not under the Ministry of Justice. The University of the Gambia is under the Ministry of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology. So the Ministry of Justice doesn't have a direct influence over tuition fees at the university. And I can tell you for free that the fees that are charged at the Gambia Law School is only a fraction of what any person would have paid outside of the Gambia. For instance, in the UK, you have to pay up to 10,000 British pounds sterling to do a bar vocational course for 1 year. In the Gambia, it's less than 2,000 pounds sterling. So comparatively, we are doing very well in the sense that the fees are comparatively very low, for Gambians to study law at the level of the Gambia Law School, which is the level that we have direct influence over. Yes, indeed, that's the answer.
But still, taking into consideration that Gambia is a poor country, don't you think $2,000 or pounds sterling is still expensive?
Well, I think the minister has intimated that the business of law is not cheap, because really you have to also understand that at the Gambia Law School you have professional lawyers who are actually volunteering their time to be able to deliver lectures, and these people have to be remunerated somehow, even though it's not at the full professional skill that they would have charged ordinarily, but they still have to be paid. And of course, if you don't have good lecturers at the law school, you cannot produce good lawyers, and that is just what it is. So whatever effort the government and the Ministry of Justice is making to reduce the level of the fees for students, there's a limit below which we cannot actually go below.
Yes, can we have another question, please?
I'm Dr. Henry Carroll, founder, senior law lecturer at the University of the Gambia. In my humble opinion, one important way of ensuring access to justice is to ensure that civil society organizations go out full-fledged and sensitize the public about their rights. It's rather unfortunate that the National Civic Education Committee only appear on our TV screens whenever there are elections coming up, like presidential, national assembly, local government, or by-elections. They should do more than that. They are being paid by taxpayers' money. They should go all around the year, including the Gambia Bar Association, flag, you name them. Some people have got a very good case when their rights have been allegedly infringed, but they are petrified. They are afraid of the legal system. They think that's a domain for lawyers and people who are highly educated. It's mystified. But if they know their rights, they're able to know their fault. They say knowledge is power and the pen is mightier than the sword. So I think the way forward is to sensitize the public, the masses. They know their rights. So whenever it's allegedly infringed, you have the guts and the temerity and the willpower to go forward to make sure they get justice they deserve.
Thank you very much, Lawyer Carroll. It's noted. Sensitization is key to access to justice. Can we have another question, please? Yes, gentleman.
Detong sayo champion. Kukiling wala de gahan. Many and the Kroma Boninan Senegal and in short now. Wala mo Bubakar Jaju to Lao Jaju and in Shuan de Kamara. Kesamalang Kasamas. Polisoli Gilinka. Lumsolo may yellow Bubakar Jaju the first. Volunteering Polisol Bere Vigil. Yasamalang. Okeda Kalata Londa. Near the dead name. Walong Ibria Yinika among Kumolfo. Telephone yung Ibria Yinika, Kaitan Alako, Adintan Kadiamule, Paski, then I'll be able to start a kilometer, be able to Kiam Masamo. So, Yaitan Alako, neither Monkumolfo, Linkumo, Luata Balfaso, along the Polisori Kumoile, Kabondra Carol. Hospital ko mira ko kono bili 2013 bili ang program da 5 days de jela ni government wala ni ko ay gahalle ko mol bula wolle kira sababodi kanyul samba andi ya fo ne ini mol ni bota jang krawol kamaw lokam ya be ko police ya be sa be fo ya say o kira ni jahal ku badi mulan dina loi wol bula wala free la sa to kono.
We'll now take a break, and when we come back, we'll look at corruption within the judiciary. Honorable Minister, let's now talk about corruption within the judiciary. We are not saying there's corruption within the judiciary, but we just want to know whether is it an issue.
Well, first we need to declare about certain things. Whatever response I'm going to give is not on the assumption that there is corruption. I have no evidence of that. But corruption is an issue everywhere, and it must be dealt with seriously wherever it's ugly head, but especially at the level of the judiciary, because the judiciary is generally as the last bastion of hope.
So it's like in the judiciary, there's nothing like corruption there.
I did not say that. I said I have no evidence of corruption at this point.
Mr. Marino, what's your take?
We lawyers don't like to open statements without evidence, without proof. And as far as we are aware, there has not been reported cases of corruption in our judiciary. Thank God. And so as of now, unless anybody brings forth evidence to show that there is indeed corruption, we can only presume that there is little or no corruption in our judiciary because there has not been, complaints to that effect.
Again, I want to hear from the public your take on corruption and our justice system.
I am Omar Saibo Kamara, a student of the University of the Gambia. I want to throw a question, and my question goes this way. I have been observing in the then government that there are interference into the judiciary and the justice system, especially government members. You see a case will be laid in police, a particular minister, governor, or permanent secretary will call directly to order for a list of somebody that may have an offense against a state or a particular individual. This has been something that makes the judiciary system so much corrupt because they were not independent in the then government. And basically my question is, what take are you prepared to take towards these people being free completely? If I say be free completely, government should not interfere into the judiciary system, meaning those in the power, people close to them are going to enjoy justice or injustice. So this is something that has been happening in the then government.
Thank you for your questions and comments. My response was directly addressing the question that was asked, is there corruption? Now, was there corruption in the previous regime? Certainly, I agree with that there was a lot of corruption during the time of the previous regime. I believe that our judiciary was actually an arm of the executive at the time. That is the reality. We cannot hide from that. And that is why I will agree with you that there was corruption in the old judiciary. Whether there is still corruption, I have no evidence of that. But one of the measures, one of the many things that the Ministry of Justice is doing in terms of trying to sanitize our justice system, because if you recall, if many of you would recall, my first comment when I was appointed was that we want to restore public confidence in our justice system, because that is important. And the first act that the government did, on the recommendation of the Minister of Justice, myself here, the President, in consultation with the Judicial Service Commission, appointed a Chief Justice, a Gambian-born Chief Justice, who is a man of utmost integrity, credibility, and respect, not only in this country, but at the international community. Now, he comes with a lot of experience and integrity. That was the first step. I think it was a very powerful message to the rest of the country that things are going to be different from now on. That we are going to find people who are credible, who have the integrity, who can be trusted with the lives and everyday issues amongst ordinary Gambians. And what followed after the appointment of the Honorable Chief Justice is the appointment of other judges of the Superior Court, of Gambians of utmost integrity and credibility. Now, those are one of those are some of the measures that we, the government, really going forward, is contributing in its own way to fighting corruption in the judiciary. We are also working on improving the terms and conditions, as I mentioned earlier, of judicial officers. That is also in the pipeline. It will make corruption harder, especially with this new breed of lawyers that have been appointed as judges.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Can we have another question from the floor, please?
Balkonto na kodiala. Anto benyi mintar din na soto. Wala na ko nga na bi nga atana la program wala nga ba tambedu mala jabiro mo. Ndi mo yala em kila mo soto. Twa bo la sala e mo lo everything time. Sita je kuma la sufi aka mai sita je lu wati soto ta. Tubawa ko dini we korda wafi dini waka ko korda wafi la. Ya sama kidiyo la. Sonte be wani min dutulo to man tara ko ako dum wala ni min tay. Nani man sakunda ko to. Ay mi na foje fo tubawa wala tam ko rati dam. Fo dini wala tam ko rati. Wala entena tinta be sentan no la ka dini be ko rati. Ni sem bi ta kan kidiyo la. Misi meten dole ma ko nanna loya ja dal sili tambu ma jo wala bi ma domar kino fon be ala de. Bari hani bi man fan so to no.
Tell her that I do empathize with her situation. And that it is these kinds of public frustrations that this new government intends to address. That her case is one of several other cases before our courts.
And
that we are looking at ways to improve our case management systems. We're working very closely with the judiciary on this. But that this government has inherited a lot of problems. Both national problems and individual problems of people. And that we're doing all we can to address these problems, but it will take time. I will ask her to exercise more patience. I hope soon the case will proceed expeditiously.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Can we have another question from the floor?
Assalamu alaikum, Honorable Minister. Mbari kontono. Kukile njahali tujim banko kang. Ntalem on the 15 April, the many long 2016, the social media vaccine. The level of multi. Yemota yem tocho. Yepo bekena. Na modul fata. Hani samma sokunda jada statement talan tondo ko fonda jara loko. Na modul dama yola samano na geroto. Ikada wala sama dakar pat kati jara. Hani sam tolman kibar sokon na kuon kono. Modol biji ye penkule, modol biji ye toranya jole ke ta fonola, wala balu kono. Man safunda man stepta no je skill. Nya bi man safunda lota di alta kolan tonnen. Nya bi man safunda lota tonnen. Wa man safunda kono halbi wo mol bije. Mol ban kon mela ko kalanta. Imam palaso no man safunda. Imam jara lo soklo.
I thank you for your statement. I think we should recognize the efforts of those who were at the front line of this struggle to regain our freedom and democracy in this country.
Kau kumala prok na sugero kamulla katakula mlela ye fambo uka banko yin bondo mara jawo kono mea ko biente defila karo ko.
And there have been many others as well.
From
22nd July 1994, some people have been fighting to restore democracy in this country.
July 1994,
and all of us need recognition for your efforts. And you have succeeded. Through your efforts, we were able to peacefully remove a dictatorship and restore democracy in this country. And the fact that you're sitting there and addressing me in an open forum such as this is testament of your success. But the government does not intend to stop at just recognizing by words your efforts. Hopefully you will have an opportunity to share your story and experience with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission when that is established.
Reconciliation Commission. And
there will be a reparation system in appropriate cases. Again, I can only urge patience. I know people are impatient. They expect too much too soon. And that is understandable. They've been waiting for 22 years. But the end is here now. And it can only get better from here.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Can we get more comments or questions from the floor?
My name is Sana Kamara. I'm an independent journalist. My comment is, despite all the safeguards that the government can put in place, I think one of the most important instruments that we can use to fight corruption is to empower the independent journalists or the independent press. Because with the independent press, we know that we get accountability, that we get transparency, and issues like this will definitely come to be recorded. And obviously, we have seen that the indications are that the government is taking very strong moves towards empowering the press. So we just need to move up the scale, and then also all the parties, the civil society, to participate by bringing forward cases that they know associated with the corruption within the judiciary. But all the time there are cases of corruption, whether they are reported or not, but there is always cases of corruption taking place within the judiciary. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Do you have any representatives to see, to observe what is going on in the court? Because it's very important. Day in, day out, we see how the things goes on in the court by denying people, most especially less privileged people. Okay? My second question goes like this. Do you have someone who observe or supervise cases that the judges or the magistrates are handling?
I believe the first thing one of the first comments I made was that we need to respect the independence of the judiciary. It's a separate arm of the state. There is a presumption of professionalism in all judicial appointments, particularly those who serve on the bench. Oversight mechanism, which is that if litigants are not satisfied with a particular outcome, there is an appellate procedure. So, I mean, whether we have someone to really supervise the judiciary, we cannot, because it's an independent arm of the state. We unfortunately have to respect these principles of democracy. And if you have a particular grievance or complaint against a particular judicial officer, I think you should address that to the judiciary. And they have their own internal mechanisms for dealing with complaints from the public.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Can we have more questions and comments from the floor on the issue of the judiciary and corruption?
Thank you very much for Nabadi Mendia Muta on our behalf. I just want to say that let us understand, Munemu kelo di purka banko liberate. Kadu mo jaman tolu ko ngamira ko nin keleda ko ngam na banko liberate aka mulum fe ko ni so yemen fa bantabato mo la kude kilibidi. It's not like that. To liberate a country purka banko forea seakan memento bidron akanyanta dalilola ndolbe be lorin jankan na kamfato yitandi adunen seyta be sidola nunta man tara wonyam kela banko foreani barajo bije ala soto bije bari ila kumo kunchiko fanan bije salo gida fa banko di moleti nunto amanke tenti sabanyamo Gambia bota damento hani almamo ni le kudbo ke ni seyta ite sidola kadu ibe mem mirala sañi wo bota wo dammamu ala tenturoleti kafu kono banko media lonko hani corruption di amantara duniya kono bande men kan campagne beteke ni corruption fota dawoda molu kela bulo chodi police olu men be traffic ko andu wo corruption no bijede ma ko atije bari corruption men ka banko boy amantara jeto kadu police o nae ma ko do ba ye $50 sidiala asewo ta ayata bari alpha balu what be incoming for the big fish meno be tarla officer kono e a condition of be fetela da samo be temberi bugo be temberi inila company ena inila nafaena pour banko be ni emawo alpha la muro bota kendeke ila project go te kala wo corruption sifa molu bukaje wala niaje nyakasi kan anita diamu corruption for the dawoda membe judiciary membe court also membe traffic hey membe traffic also is uncomparable.
Thank you very much. My name is I am a journalist and I'm very happy to be part of this very, very important event that is taking place here. Corruption, we all know, is a very, very dangerous thing that can, that can shake the entire nation. And Gambia, like any other country in the sub-region, is not prone to corruption. I remember just last year, one of my colleagues, a Ghanaian journalist called Anas, embarked on a very, very interesting crusade to unearth the corruption that is undermining the judiciary of Ghana. And he succeeded in trying to establish how corruption was working in that particular country. And guess what? Many judges have to resign because they were complicit in that corruption scandal. So I just want to know how did the Ministry of Justice and Judiciary intend to engage journalists in this crusade to ensure that the legal sector is free from corrupt practice? And secondly, is there any mechanism in place that the judiciary has put in place to ensure that the judiciary is corrupt free? I cover cases here where judicial officials were engaged in corruption scandal some years back. And then at the end of the day, this case was settled, nothing comes out of it. How do we stop corruption in the Gambian judiciary? It's the work of all and sundry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we have one more on the judiciary and corruption before we move on to the issue of Mahawa Chan, which was raised by a member of the audience?
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Borolo. The now Luru Nyari Kabirek Lam, you might like. li may laajte ci loolu mooy koot su fekkee ne danga ko am lu saman la ndax ki la saman moom rek moo war a wax ba waxam jeex ñu joxe judgment wala ki saman war naa wax boobu benn la ci ñaareel ba su fekkee dañ la jaay place muy kër lu dem ci juróom-ñaari at nga tabax fa néeg jëm ak ci lent pareeguloo keneen ñëw ne dañ ko jaayaat ndax yow mi fekk nga tabax ba pare yow la war a saman wala ki ko jaayoon la war a saman loolu laa am pour la.
To respond to starting with the second question, I will not make any comments except to say that each case depends on the special circumstances of the facts, and that I can't make any comments in replying. And even if I had the facts with me, I can't make any comments on the merits of the case. So unfortunately, I cannot comment. There was an earlier question, which is whether it's only one litigant who can speak. It's against, as a general rule, it's against the rules of natural justice for only one party to be heard in proceedings, as a general rule. Now, that's all I can say right now, because I don't know the exact circumstances which led to such a decision. But no, as a general rule, it's not fair for only one party to be heard.
So now what would be your advice to him?
Well, find a lawyer, and the lawyer will give you the advice.
Sandy Mariner also raised a very important question regarding your ministry's willingness to engage journalists to dig out issues of corruption within the judiciary.
The Ministry of Justice has adopted a very open door policy, and we have not hesitated to respond to the queries of journalists throughout this country. In fact, I intend to hold my next press briefing at some point very soon. Notices will be sent out. But I believe, if I am not mistaken, Mr. Marina, that the Ghanaian journalists who did the investigations about corruption in the Ghanaian judiciary was a private initiative. And this is where journalists need to be need to be innovative, need to be creative, and expose it wherever you feel it is happening. But let me just give a word of advice. That suspicion, no matter how strong, cannot amount to evidence. And that if you are going to make allegations of corruption of judicial officers, make sure that you have your evidence.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Someone within the audience raised the issue of Gambians who were kidnapped in Senegal, with particular reference to Mahawa Chan.
The gentleman did come to my office, and I took the time to discuss with him, because I believe he is a brother to one of the disappeared persons. And I accepted to meet with him and to discuss the case. All I will say is that any decision that the Ministry of Justice takes, or myself, will be based strictly on the facts and the law. That is the point of this chain. We will not, for whatever reason, engage in prosecutions that we believe from the outset will not lead to conviction. If the evidence is not there to even establish a prima facie case on some charge, we will not, as a matter of policy, engage in that exercise. Again, prosecutorial decisions will be based on fact and law.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Solicitor General, your minister did mention here that the courts are now being decentralized, but yet still there are backlog of cases. Why is this so?
Thank you very much. I think the question of backlog of cases is a result of two principal factors. One of the factors is really about human resource constraints, because definitely we have not had a full capacity of Gambians occupying both the bench and, of course, the private practice to be able to cover all the courts effectively. And that is one result, or what is one reason for the backlog of cases. But then the second reason, of course, is that we have not been able to have a fully capacitized Gambian bench, and of course a fully capacitized Gambian, state law office, principally because of conditions of service. I'll go back to what the minister had stated, that indeed you need to pay people well if you want them to work for the state or to work for the judicial. And so far we've not been able to attract and retain Gambians to be able to solve the backlog of cases in the judiciary, because principally the pay has not been attractive enough. And one of the good things that we want to do is to really make a case to the Gambian government as a ministry, so that our Gambian brothers and sisters who are willing to serve in the judiciary as judges and magistrates, and those who are willing to serve in the state law office as state counsel, are paid well, so that they remain there and are able to prosecute cases, to the extent that we will be able to reduce the backlog, if not eliminate it.
Often do you use the EGRS alternative dispute resolution, because that too could help in reducing the backlog of cases. But how often do you use that?
Yes, certainly. ADRS or alternative dispute resolution is a private endeavor. It's a mechanism where parties who are involved in a dispute, prefer to settle it outside of the court system. You cannot force people to use the ADRS system.
How is the sensitization going on? Because it's like many do not know about the existence of the Secretariat.
It's an ongoing process, and again, it comes back to resources. How much resources is allocated to the ADRS for them to be able to fully sensitize the Gambian people on the benefits of using the ADRS system? Certainly they are doing their best within the limited resources that they have. Like I've said, they've established regional offices in Parafini and in Basse, all in a bid to be able to decentralize ADRS services throughout the Gambia. So it's an ongoing process, and we hope that people will also, prefer to take that option rather than to go to court and engage in lengthy litigations, that probably would not bring results that are beneficial to them at the end.
Thank you. Can we hear from Pender from the ADR office?
Thank you. Just to add to what the Honorable SG has said, firstly, we've been established since 2008, and the Secretariat has done countless sensitizations in different formats. We've done sensitization on the ground with villagers, alcalos, chiefs, governors. We have done radio programs continuously over a period of 2 to 3 years. We were on the radio nearly every week on different radio stations. Also on GRTS, we developed a documentary which we aired. And as the Honorable SG said, the question is cost. So when GRTS is charging us over 20,000 dollars for 30 minutes, and everything is dependent on project funding, we obviously cannot do as much as we would like to do. Everything is based on resources and constraints of resources.
Still on the backlog of cases, you have so many people still in remand waiting for their cases to be heard. What are you doing about that? Because this is a miscarriage of justice.
The Ministry of Justice is very conscious of the huge numbers of inmates in remand wings throughout the country. And one of the very first things we did upon assumption of office was to establish a criminal case and detention review panel to review cases, pending criminal cases against current public officers or former public officers, or cases linked to a political activity, or those in remand. Now, the Criminal Case and Detention Review Panel has done a tremendous job over the past few months, and I wish to take this opportunity to recognize their efforts under the leadership of Ms. Olidanso, who's sitting right there, my minister. They have been able to go through a huge number of cases. If I am not mistaken, it involves over 300 accused persons, and that they have made recommendations for the discontinuation of cases involving 78 people. 78 people involved in cases that we have concluded shouldn't have been prosecuted. Now, there is still a huge number of detainees at the remand wing. If I am not mistaken, they have just submitted the report to me. If I am not mistaken, we have about 207 people in remand for various serious offenses. And one of the initiatives of the Honorable Chief Justice, who has consulted me about this, is to use the vacation while the lawyers are enjoying their holidays, to use the vacation period to expedite the cases of those in remand. So we want to ensure that between July and September, we have day-to-day sittings, criminal case sittings in the High Court for those who are in remand, so that we can at least attempt to clear, if not all, but the majority of the cases of those who are still in remand. So we are making an active effort to ensure that we clear the backlog of these cases. But again, it's a question of capacity and resources.
Thank you very much. Let's now pass the microphone on to the audience to hear their views about the backlog of cases.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Omar Ndour, ex-president of the Gambia Teachers Union. May I first commend the Minister and the Solicitor General. I want to say, and I think part of it you have already alluded to, regarding the backlog of cases and the strategies you are taking to, try to solve those problems. I'm a novice in this area, but I do hear people say, justice delayed is justice denied. But in practice, what we see in the courts is that cases almost often, we have adjournments, and not realizing the fact that once you adjourn a case, you are denying somebody at remand the possibility of being judged and set free.
Can we have more comments or questions on the backlog of cases?
Street division. Nala na kona kono le. Mo be afe. James ifana ngafe. Afko mu wani kodal. Street division ko wa wafla semboka. Sembol bedel. To street division. De be mo gambe no ji. Gambe no fo masala sembodi street masukunda sembodi street division le ba. Kapa fenda miskino le fenda kan kodal ka ke wa semboka. Ay jagal bakal. 2014 and inside them. Never cordless. Every time adjourn. Still now, manakot man amankeno. 1 year 6 months in Gambia. Damantarajang. 1 year 6 months in Gambia. Halaloka, Masunya, Mataparia, Kadokolke, Sugorogo Bolela, Nakora. That time, that is I don't sleep in Gambia. Nakora, Naraje, Kim Samuel Blanyara, Fire. Kodani wani kodal mkanawa kawa wafla still na wana kito amankunduno ana dima demo na korra kono la ana njaka da bagale because nda do ngameno le ito do ko la de do ham do ko la do masa mbodi mo la na nek mo la fenka ko symbole betela masa kunda yala masa kunda kono sai masa kunda falinda sa han sai fenjol mel fen sutono ajon adake jakal bagal na da jam pour mon ministre of justice de please as down street division for na kola ba as da bango kan bakale ikamol ko moni bakale sambo kan sai wo sambo ni go banda sai be democracy ga anindwa.
His concern is that the Sheriff division is threatening to sell his house I mean, basically he's been involved in a court case since 2014. What I can say, I can't comment specifically on his case, but what I can say is that the Sheriff Division only has power to sell property which has been ordered by the court. So it is surprising to hear that the court case is still on while the sheriff is trying to sell the property. But whatever it is, I think the Honorable Attorney General has mentioned that we have a very good and a very conscientious Chief Justice who is really determined to see that justice is done in all cases. So what I would advise him is that you lodge a complaint with the Office of the Chief Justice, detailing out all the facts about the matter that you are reporting about here, and I'm sure the Chief Justice will take steps to be able to solve your problem. And that is the advice I would wish to give you. Because like the Attorney General has mentioned, the judiciary is an independent arm of government. The Attorney General cannot walk to the Office of the Chief Justice or the Office of the Sheriff and order him to do anything, because that would be against the rules of independence of the judiciary. But what we can tell you is that the Chief Justice is available. Please lodge your complaint with him, and he will be able to solve the problem.
Thank you very much, Solicitor General. We now move on to the much talked about Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Honorable Minister, how far has the process gone?
Thank you. We have, at the level of the Ministry of Justice, completed a review of the draft bill for the establishment of the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission. We have shared this draft bill with international experts who have acquired expertise and experience in the establishment of truth commissions around the world for their views. Having said that, let me make clear that whatever advice or views we get from anywhere, any quarters around the world, our truth, reconciliation and reparations model will be based on our social, cultural, and historical context in this country. We hope that in the early month of August, we will embark on a nationwide tour around the country to engage ordinary Gambians in discussions about the truth, reconciliation, and reparations process. We will listen to their concerns. We will explain the process, the objective, and the rationale of this commission, and we will take that on board as we finalize the design of the process. The people who will be embarked on this tour will be selected from a cross-section of Gambian communities, from religious, political, civil society, youth and women's groups, from across every community in the country, to embark on this tour, and they themselves actually will undergo a 1 or 2 day training on the methodology that we will employ in our public engagements for this process. We hope that by September, we will be able to present the final bill before the National Assembly. And if, because again, we have to remember that the National Assembly is an independent organ of government. If the bill is passed, we hope to start the competitive recruitment process to be able to start public hearings by end of the year.
Thank you very much. Honorable Minister, Gambia is a closely knit society. Do you think that the country really needs a Truth and Reconciliation Commission?
My answer to that is this. First, it was a political promise by the ruling coalition. It was part of their manifesto that if elected into office, they will establish such a commission. The Gambian people exhibited their agreement with that by accepting the manifesto and voted the coalition into office. So it's a promise that has been made to the Gambian people. I am entrusted to fulfill that promise. But the process or the project is not mine. It belongs to the people of the Gambia. If you ask me personally, if I do believe that we need a Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission, yes, I think we do. The purpose that such a commission serves is not only about encouraging reconciliation, and we do need to encourage reconciliation. But the purpose really is much deeper. The point of this change on 1st December 2016 was that people were tired of the kind of governance environment that the previous government created, and they desperately wanted change. And this change means that we do not ever want to go through or experience what we went through over the past 22 years. How can we avoid that if we do not seek to understand how we got there in the first place? It's only by understanding how we got there will we be able to put in place mechanisms that will prevent recurrence, that will prevent us from sliding back into the kind of governance environment we emerged from. And the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission will help us to find answers to this question.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's now pass the microphone on to the audience. Do you think at this stage in our history the Gambia needs to set up a Truth and Reconciliation Commission? Your reactions, please.
Thank you very much, and congratulations to the Honorable Minister for the work that the Ministry has been doing. I need to know your views about the widespread, widely held belief that in the process of setting up a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, that you may be relegating justice to the back burner. What can you say to that?
Thank you very much, Honorable Dane. I think it's a bit complicated to explain all of this in a forum like this, but the approach that we have taken, which includes the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission, is part of the broader transitional justice mechanism that the Ministry of Justice has embarked upon. The fact of the establishment of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission is itself part of the justice delivery system that we envisage within this broader transitional justice system. Justice, I keep saying, is not only about punitive sanctions against perpetrators, but it's also about restoring, to the extent possible, the shattered lives of the victims. I think the victims, at least insofar as the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission is concerned, the victims are taking center stage. It provides them with an opportunity to share their stories. It will bring closure to them and their families. It doesn't mean that we will relegate the more conventional accountability processes. No. We believe at this point in time, the priority is to establish the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission to be able to get answers to most of the questions that we will not readily find in a typical criminal trial. Because in a typical criminal trial, the accused typically will deny. But a Truth and Reconciliation Commission provides them with an opportunity to share their stories and also bring closure for them too, because they also need closure. We live in small communities. We have perpetrators living side by side with victims. There's an air of mistrust and suspicion amongst our communities. We need to find a structured, open and transparent manner to allow both the perpetrators and the victims to come out and tell their side of the story.
Thank you. Can we have another question or comments from the floor?
You see, they're all happy with the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission.
Well, we'll take a break now.
Face the Nation on GRTS, proudly sponsored by the Gambia International Airline. The Gambia Telecommunications Company and the Gambia Revenue Authority. The Gambia International Airlines, GIA, is the national carrier of the Gambia that engages in air transport and related services. Being the main provider of ground and cargo handling services, mainly passenger and ground handling, GIA is also the sole Hajj operator in the Gambia, responsible for chartering flights and airlifting pilgrims to and from the Holy Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. GIA have expert personnel on passenger handling on all flights to Banjul International Airport with a world-class departure control system DCS acquired from SITA. Our ultra-modern cargo complex is equipped with the latest industry facilities, providing a cargo air freight, processing storage, and handling services in accordance with international standards with competitive prices. GIA is accredited by International Association of Travel Agents IATA, serving all major carriers, flying in and out of the Banjul International Airport with the latest global distribution systems, Amadeus, and Travelport. The strategic location of Gambia, approximately 5 hours to major European capitals, makes it the preferred destination for European tourists. It is always nice to do business with GIA. For reservation and bookings, call 439-6684, 4472785, or 4472755, or email us on info@gia.gm or www.gia.gm.
We now move on to the freezing of President Yahya Jammeh's assets, former President Yahya Jammeh's assets. Why the freezing order on Jammeh's assets?
I gave a press briefing when I announced the freezing, is that preliminary investigations at the central bank and other public enterprises have revealed that President Jammeh, directly or persons acting under his instructions, have unlawfully withdrawn huge amounts of money from different enterprises and bank accounts belonging to the public enterprises or the government of the Gambia. In the case of the central bank, the international gateway account. And that we believe that if we do not take these preemptive acts, the former president or his close associates or family members may either liquidate or attempt to dissipate these assets. So it's a preemptive measure to make sure that if a court of competent jurisdiction finds or makes adverse findings against the former president in respect of these unlawful withdrawals, that the state should be able to get back its money through the liquidation.
But many believe it is a betrayal of trust because prior to his departure from the Gambia, there was an agreement between him and the international community which stated clearly that his assets, the assets that are lawfully his, wouldn't be touched.
There are several issues to that, and please allow me to elaborate on this. First, as the Minister of Justice, I have never seen such an agreement. If it exists.
But then the government was in exile. And then the international community was acting as a proxy for the Gambia government.
I will just allow me to respond in steps.
In steps.
I have not seen this agreement, so I do not really, I cannot comment on the text, really, the substance of the text. First. Second, the government of the Gambia is the government of the Gambia, and this goes into the territory of international law. The question now arises as to whether the international community can act on behalf of the government of the Gambia in executing such an agreement. Two. Third, we have not said that this, even assuming that the agreement exists and that it was executed by the international community on behalf of the government of the Gambia or by the government of the Gambia, we still need to establish the lawfulness of these properties, because implied in such an agreement would be the lawfully acquired properties. Now we want to inquire into the lawfulness or otherwise of these properties, and it is until then that we can determine as to whether they really belong to President or former President Jammeh or not.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Solicitor General.
Well, just to add that at least I think the government should be credited for following due process in this whole saga, because the government didn't just jump on assets of the former president or purported assets of the former president and seize them. The government applied to the court for a freezing order, and of course this application was granted by the court. And of course, just to clarify as well, that a freezing order doesn't mean confiscation. A freezing order means let's put a temporary hold on the properties, let's investigate and find out those assets which lawfully belong to the former president and those that do not belong to the former president, and then the commission can make a decision. So the misconception that the government has confiscated the assets should be clarified. It's not a confiscation, rather a temporary hold, so that nobody, whether the former president or somebody purporting to act on his behalf, does not actually sell these properties off or doesn't use them for any other purposes for which they are not authorized, and that is very important for us to note in this exercise.
Thank you very much. Let's get reactions from the floor.
I am Absa Samba. I am an intern with the Gambia Press Union. So I will take you back to the previous session on truth, reconciliation, and reparation session. Mr. Minister, you gave the name Truth, Reconciliation, and Reparation to the Commission. And you said that around August, you will engage in a nationwide consultation with the people to know as to what they want to see happen. For me, in the name that you've chosen, it sends a message that you already have a conceived mind as to what you want to see happen. Because I believe that the people that you will be consulting should inform as to what they want to see happen, and that should guide as to what the name should be called. You've also conducted a study tour in Sierra Leone, and I've learned that in Sierra Leone, up to today, there are people, perpetrators who are walking in the streets, and they are living larger than the people that they victimize, and to a great extent have contributed to the situations that these victims are living with. So how do you intend to address or reconcile issues like that, or how will you avoid it in our situation?
Thank you for very interesting questions. And the first question is about the name. coming before the public consultations. Now, first, it doesn't matter how you call it. It may be just a truth commission. What matters really is what you get from it, rather than the name. Secondly, the name was deliberate because we want to ensure that we feature prominently the issue of reconciliation and reparations for the victims, because it is also very important. Now, in terms of consultations, there is a minimum that is required of the ministry in the establishment of this TRC. And then, of course, there is what we will expect from a wider consultation. If we were to base the establishment of our Truth Commission on what the general public will say, then trust me, we will have a few hundred models of what the Truth Commission should be like. So this is a very highly specialized area of transitional justice. And that is why even at the level of the ministry, when we have finalized our review at our level, we have shared it with experts around the world who have acquired the necessary experience in establishing these forms of commissions. So it's a highly specialized area, and the consultations with the people is mostly, as I said, to engage with them so that they tell us their views, and it gives us the opportunity to explain to them in greater detail what the objectives are, what the rationale is, and how it is going to work, how the entire process is going to take place. In terms of the study tour in Sierra Leone and the perpetrators living life, I don't know about living lives, but I know that truth commissions generally provide mechanisms to encourage perpetrators to speak the truth. Because it is only through truth-telling that we can learn appropriate lessons to put in place the mechanisms we want to prevent, again, as I said, recurrence. Now, there are different mechanisms to encourage truth-telling. If the perpetrators do not feel that there is some benefit in it for them, then they will be reluctant to speak the truth. Now, that is a difficult, hard choice with truth commissions. And our purpose of going to Sierra Leone was not only to learn about their successes, but also to learn about their challenges, what they could have done differently, so that we, in designing our own model, based on our particular circumstances here, we can take into account all of those and make sure that we minimize the negative impact that a truth commission can have.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. We'll go back to the audience for more reactions and comments.
Mr. Marana, again, really I'm inspired, great discussion going on. This is what we expect from New Gambia. Honorable Minister, my question goes to you again. You received a freezing order by the Superior Court here to freeze the assets of the former president, which include landed properties, bank account, companies, etc. My focus is Jammeh is not only having assets locally, but he is believed to have acquired legal assets outside the jurisdiction of this country. In the US, there is a mansion worth millions of dollars in Morocco and elsewhere. How far have we gone in terms of freezing those assets also in order to bring them back? And secondly, truth and reconciliation. From my own point of view, I have talked to a lot of people, both ordinary Gambians, experts, but to them, Gambia does not need a truth and reconciliation commission. What we need at this moment is how do we provide victims with access to justice? How do they get access to justice? So to me, I just want to know, because you are embarking on a countrywide consultation, have you begun and what is the reaction from ordinary people with regard to the establishment of this Truth and Reconciliation Commission? Thank you.
Just a few words on the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. As I said, the debate, the jury is still out there as to whether we need it or not. But this is what's healthy. This is now a democracy. We can exchange ideas. We can agree, we can disagree, but we do it in a civil way. And this is encouraging. People are free, they're at liberty to express their views and disagree with other ideas. But the government has taken a decision to establish it. It is going to happen. Even in the countries where it had occurred, there was a section of the communities who didn't think that they needed such a commission. So, I mean, this is okay. People can disagree. But the decision has been made by this government to establish it. It is going to be established. We have not yet started the public consultations. As I said, we hope to do so in the first week of August. So we're still finalizing the concept note, the terms of reference, and then we will look at selecting the team. As I said, that will be a representation of Gambian society, conduct 1 or 2 days workshop for them on the methodology, and then we will proceed from there. So we're still in the preparatory stage. The first question again, Mr. Marina, it's a complicated legal process, and we have already started to engage with this government. We are already working with some international organizations and foreign governments to identify, locate, and take appropriate action on these assets outside the country. But it's not going to happen as quickly as it did here in the Gambia, simply because this is outside the Gambia, and it's a more complicated legal process when you want to extend extraterritoriality.
Well, our time is up. Many thanks to the Minister of Justice, Honorable Batambedu, the Solicitor General, Sharma Barina, senior officials from the Ministry of Justice. Thank you very much for honoring our invitation. And thanks to our live audience and to viewers of GRTS around the world. See you next week. Thank you.